The August meeting of the Suffolk Board of Zoning Appeals will now come to order. Mr. Skinner, if you call the roll, please.
Peter C. Jackson.
Present.
Daniel Froman.
Present.
Richard Eastlick.
Present.
Melissa Venable.
Present.
Howard C. Benton.
Present.
We have a quorum.
We have a quorum in full attendance, and thank you for that. Are there any corrections to the minutes of the July meeting? Can I have a motion for approval?
Motion to approve.
Motion for approval. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And we hear a second. All right. Any discussion of the motion? If not, all in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed say no. All right. Thank you for that. And for purposes of the minutes, that was Board Member Venable for the motion, and I believe Froman for the second. All right. Public hearings, we have two this afternoon. Public hearings are 30 minutes in length. 10 minutes for the proponents, 15 minutes for opponents, 5 minutes for rebuttal by the proponents. Our first public hearing this afternoon is BZA 24-2021, 2737 North Nanceman Drive, Dawn and Brian Moss. Mr. Skinner, if you'll present the caption, please.
Before the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BZA 24-2021. The applicant, Dawn and Brian Moss, are requesting a variance to reduce the required yard setback to the adjacent street from 30 feet to 0 feet for the construction of a 6-foot fence. The property is identified as tax map 11A star 142 and parcel 303652,500. The address is 2737 North Nasman Drive, Suffolk, Virginia, Sleepy Hole Voting Borough. Zoning classification residential medium density RLM. When you act upon this request, you will be acting on a request to reduce the required yard setback from 30 feet to 0 feet to construct a 6-foot fence. Should the board decide in favor of approving this request, the 8 findings as listed in your package must be articulated as part of the motion. We will now have staff analysis by Jennifer Cobb.
Good afternoon, board members and chairman. As previously stated, the applicants Dawn and Brian Moss are requesting a variance from the Unified Development Ordinance, Article 4, Section 31407C, Table 4071, Dimensional Standards, L, to reduce the required side yard setback adjacent to a street from 30 feet to 0 feet to construction of a 6-foot tall privacy fence. The property is identified as tax map and parcel 11A star 142, located at 2737 North Nanceman Drive, Suffolk, Virginia, Sleeping Hole Voting Borough, zoning classification RLM, residential low medium density. This variance request was advertised in the Suffolk News Herald, and a notice was mailed to adjacent property owners in accordance with Section 15.2.2204 of the Code of Virginia. A sign was also posted on the property. The applicants are requesting a variance to reduce the required side yard setbacks adjacent to a street in order to construct a 6-foot tall fence on a corner lot. The applicant stated they replaced the existing 4-foot fence with a 6-foot fence, did not know the contractor did not pull a permit for the fence replacement. The applicants also stated if they met the required 30-foot setback for the 6-foot fence, the fence would go right through the pool that is in their side yard. Section 31701-10A states a fence or wall not more than 6 feet in height may be located in any required side yard or rear yard other than a required yard adjacent to a street. No fence or wall which creates a solid screen may exceed 2.5 feet in height in any required yard adjacent to a street, except that fences having a uniform open area of 50% or more may be erected to a maximum height of 4 feet in such required yards. And this is a picture of the fence. By permitting a 6-foot fence in a required side yard adjacent to a street, it would set a precedence. Therefore, staff does not recommend approval of this request. And I'm available for any questions the board may have after the public hearing.
Thank you, Ms. Cobb. We will now open the public hearing. Who would like to speak on behalf of this application?
Good afternoon. I am Dawn Moss. Once again, we did not know anything about that. There's other fences just like that right down the street. Officer Ferrum of the Suffolk Police Department has one. There's others in the neighborhood. Like I said, all we did was replace a fence that was already there. It's not in any sight view from traffic. We've had multiple neighbors, they're glad that we got the fence because it definitely replaced the one that was up there. So when we asked the city people why there was an issue, they didn't have an answer for us. All they said, well, that's just the code. So we're not really sure what the issue is with the fence.
Also, I understand that maybe it would be blocking the view of the intersection to be a problem, but the street you're seeing up there, that's Holly. There is a stop sign going in that direction. The street going across from our house, North Nansemond, there is no stop sign. So therefore, it's not really blocking the view of traffic going through, and it doesn't block the view anyway. I could see if that was an issue with the fence, if it was blocking the view of traffic. I've been a driver ed teacher at Nansemond River for 15 years now. So I understand all these things with traffic and the fence blocking the view, but it doesn't do that. And we simply took an old, worn out fence that was almost falling over, that was 4 foot, and I put a 6 foot one up. My ignorance, I didn't realize that just replacing an old fence and improving it with a newer one that's higher was in violation. I understand that. I'm willing to pay for the permits or whatever. But I mean, that's kind of our argument. Like, it doesn't block any view of anything. It actually improves the property. The neighbors around have all said the same thing. We've been in the house for 4 years, and when we got that property, it was pretty much worn down. And it was left to just kind of sit there, and everything was overgrown. And we've greatly increased the property value. So that's pretty much where we're standing on that. And we're asking that, yes, you do kind of take that into consideration. I understand there's zones, and I understand there's codes and everything like that, but I also think you got to look at, why do we have the code? What is the purpose of that code? Is it for blocking view? Well, this isn't blocking view. I understand what she was saying about we're setting a precedent. Well, if that precedent was set with all the other fences in the neighborhood that are the same way, then why do they still have them? So that's where I guess that's my argument.
Again, this is your moment to tell us what you want us to hear. Any questions that we have, we'll save until we close the public hearing.
All right, that's,
I have a question.
Well, I'd rather save the questions
Okay.
until after the public
All
hearing.
right.
all right,
Okay, all right,
that's it.
That's it then. Yes, sir.
all right, thank you for
Thank
that.
you.
All right, is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition? If there is no one who would like to speak in opposition, would you like to make any additional comments on behalf of your application? If you'd not like to make any additional comments, we will now close the public hearing. And as I said just a moment ago, this is a time that we'll get into questions and answers. And at this time, I recognize Board Member Eslick.
Mr. Moss, when you had the 4-foot fence, did you install the 4-foot fence, or was it installed by a previous owner?
It was already there by a previous owner, yes, sir.
A question I might also ask, this new fence that you have, I suppose the description would be it's a solid fence, so you cannot see through it. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. The previous fence, was that also a solid fence?
Yes, sir. It was just a 4 foot tall one.
Okay, all right. Again, while Mr. Moss is at the podium, are there any other questions from members of the board? I might ask the question myself. The green area between the fence and the street, is that a city area? If you've got a zero setback, that's an implication that is not your property, that's city property, is that correct?
Correct. The fence right now is 13 feet off the road.
Which that.
12 and a half, 13 feet. I
Okay,
think.
but that is city property, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Who keeps that?
I do.
cut? You keep that cut?
I do. I keep that cut. I keep my neighbor behind me cut. The house across the street from me, I helped cut that, and that's been vacant for 3 or 4 years now. Me and another neighbor take turns cutting that because we just don't want it to look bad. There's a person who owns it, but no one's been in the house for 3 or 4 years. So we're keeping that lot up too.
Again, while Mr. Moss is at the podium, are there any other questions to Mr. and Mrs. Moss from members of the board? Thank you, Mr. Moss.
Thank you.
Ms. Cobb, I'd like to ask you a question. Ms. Moss made reference, I do believe, in her public comments that there were other fences like that in the community. Is that a correct statement?
I believe there may be a couple of fences that are 6 feet. I don't know that they're necessarily on the property line, but they're older fences, and I'm not sure when they were installed.
Are they also fences that, what is the terminology you would use where you cannot see through a fence?
Solid fence.
Solid fence. Are they also solid fences?
There are some solid fences over there. There's also, as you can see behind that, there's that 4 foot, 50% opaque fence behind it, the chain link that you can see in this picture. That's also on the corner too. So
But
there's a
that-
little bit of everything over there. However, as people start replacing fences, we require them to bring them into today's standards, meaning we do not allow these. I don't know when those fences were installed, but today, if they were to go in and replace it, that is not something that's permitted based upon our zoning ordinance now.
Wouldn't that be, all right, in other words, there are existing fences like this, but because of the age, they were put in place before this code was part of the requirement. Is that correct?
Correct.
Wouldn't it be easy for someone to think, hey, look, my fence is begging for attention, and either replace part of it or whatever in innocence without being mindful of the code?
It's possible. And so they received a notice of violation from one of the zoning inspectors to let them know that the fence, A, needed a permit, and B, was not in compliance with their fence regulations.
Okay, but this was after the fact?
After the fact, yes, sir.
after the fact. While Ms. Cobb is at the podium, are there other questions from members of the board?
I have another question. If it, on the side of the fence that's adjacent to the street, if that were 4 feet tall, would it be okay?
Even the way the code is written now, no, it would have to be 50% opaque, so like a split rail or like a picket where they would remove the picket so you could see through it. The only solid screening they allow, or that we allow on a corner lot, is 2.5 feet, the way that it's written.
So the Mosses are in this predicament because the contractor didn't apply for a permit.
They did not pull a permit, no.
If this were a new subdivision, and we have new subdivisions going up continuously, I'm mindful of one out my way in which I see 1 or 2 properties that have put up solid fences. Are they required to get a permit before they put the fence up?
Yes,
They
they
are.
should, yes.
Okay, but this neighborhood, because of the age of it, the existing fences are there because it was not a requirement. Is that correct?
It's hard to say when the fences went up. That would be speculation to figure out when they went up. But if it was done prior to this code, then there may not have been fence requirements for permitting or for the setbacks.
And if this were an interior lot, it could just all be 6 feet, right?
Correct. The predicament that they are in is because they're on a corner lot.
So on the right-hand side, as you're looking in the house, that fence starts in the rear and it goes to the back. That's legal, is that correct?
If that's on the interior side, yes.
Okay, then the rear is 6 feet solid, is that legal?
Yes,
Okay.
until it gets to that 30-foot all the way along Holly Road side. That is the setback requirement along Holly Road for a 6-foot fence, which, like in the staff report says, it would put the fence right through their pool.
Thank you.
Any other questions to Ms. Cobb while she is at the podium?
Well, I'm a little confused about the 30-foot and going through the pool. What part of the fence is that?
So that again, if they met the 30-foot
If they met
setback,
the 30-foot
it would go, the fence would be going right into the pool, through the pool this way. They couldn't meet it because of where the pool is located. And again, the pool, it's an above-ground pool, correct? So I don't know that that was permitted properly either. That's already existing as well.
So they'd have to move the fence and/or the pool, right?
If they were to put a 6-foot fence in, it would have to kind of run here.
And that would have to move over that.
But you can have, Ms. Cobb, you can have a pool with a 4-foot fence. A pool isn't required to have a 6-foot
A
fence.
above-ground pool does not even have to have the actual, as far as building code requirements, they could lift the ladder up and the wall, the outside wall, be the barrier to protect the pool. So if they took the ladder up, then that would suffice as a barrier to keep children out of the pool.
So if they were to meet code, they would only have to replace that one side with a 4-foot fence?
And this 30 feet here and this 30
And
feet.
50% opaque, the way that it's written
Okay.
today, yes,
In other words, it could not be a solid fence.
correct.
Any other questions to Ms. Cobb? Ms. Cobb, thank you. All right, we've had the public hearing. We've had questions. Can we have a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Motion from Board Member Froman for approval. Do I hear a second? Motion for approval from Board Member Froman. Do I hear a second? If there is no second, do I hear another motion?
Ms. Cobb, may I ask you a question? Has it been discussed with the property owner if the fence could be pulled in adjacent to the pool? I know it still wouldn't conform, but
No, we have not had any correspondence in regards to that.
Would that have made any difference in your recommendation?
I believe it's maybe like a 5 or 10 foot setback would be better than a 0. I mean, we're talking right on the property line on that side corner. So yes, we would have been more inclined to recommend approval for that.
Okay.
Problem is, once we start approving fences at that 0 setback line, then everybody's going to want to start putting fences, and it's going to create that solid wall
Right.
as you drive along any thoroughfare, and you see that.
thank you. We've had a couple other situations that are similar, and I do not support 6-foot opaque fences along property boundaries, so we can either request that a modification be made to the application, or I don't know if that's a possibility that you would consider modifying this and coming back to us.
Well, at this time, I think that we have heard the dilemma, and Ms. Cobb has responded to a potential alternative. It could be, and let me just float this, and I need to either look at Mr. Skinner or Ms. Cobb before we act on this. Is it possible that this could be tabled and allow the applicant and Ms. Cobb to meet to see if an alternative situation can be made for that fence? Let me look at Mr. Skinner or Ms. Cobb.
Can we ask the Mosses if they would?
Wait a minute. I want to get it with city staff before I throw it out to them.
Okay.
Absolutely.
You've heard what I said, but now let me swivel and look at Mr. Skinner.
I would suggest that we open back up the public session and then table it after we have, after we speak to them, so that, because they're going to change it, so then that means if somebody else wanted to come and have some comments on it, then we wouldn't be in sync to what our bylaws state. So in other words, we need to open it back up, because we closed the public session.
That's correct.
So we need to open that back up to allow the opportunity for them to present us during our next meeting with an alternative, so that they wouldn't have to go through the whole process again of re-advertising and things of that nature.
In other words, I can open this public hearing back up
Yes.
for that.
Yes, you can.
And then that means that they would not have to pay any additional fees to come back.
Right.
That they can come back with the fees that they've already
Right, because
paid.
you're going to table it until next meeting.
Okay, that's why I'm looking to you for some direction. Ms. Cobb, are you in agreement for us to offer the Mosses that alternative?
Sure, yes.
All right, now with all of that said, Mr. and Ms. Moss, you've been waiting very patiently. You've heard what has been said. Do you have a response to that?
So my understanding is the back side of the fence is okay, that we're looking at there.
It's going to be 30 feet from that side all the way back.
Okay,
So
see,
it's not
we're-
even that back section.
right, the back side is okay, correct?
Until it hits the 30 feet.
Right, the front side of that's okay, so we're just talking about this side, the side fence.
No, sir.
Yeah, I'm going to.
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
I'm going to show you right here.
Okay.
So, you see where the house is?
Yeah.
It's approximately, no, it's 38.7 feet from that property line.
Correct.
So if you came out 8 feet, which would still be going through your pool, it would have to meet that setback all the way down the side.
I understand that.
So the section back here is good,
And the section in
and
front's good.
well, up only till 30 feet though.
Now, my question is, if they're okay, but they got to stop at the 30 feet. Okay. So I was thinking if they're okay going all the way to the edge, then that's where I was confused. Okay. If we were to take a slat out, every other slat, then it's considered see-through, yes? And we cut it down to 4 feet.
That would be fine, then we would even,
But what about the back and the front? So the back would be 6 foot, the front would be 6 foot, and then,
Right, I understand that.
Because one on
That's
side
what I'm saying.
terrible.
It doesn't make sense.
and two, we have a deck all around the pool, and the ladder's attached to the deck, so there's no limit.
So,
on
Let
may I
me-
make a recommendation that we table this item so y'all can have this discussion
Yeah,
with
that's
Ms.
fine.
Cobb?
I just, there was one thing I just didn't understand. She
That's
clarified that.
my point with you at this particular moment. Are you receptive to us tabling this, which means we're not taking any action, yes or no? We
Yes.
did not get a second for the motion to approve it as is. So it seems as though if we reopen the public hearing, it's a procedural process, and make a motion, we've got to have a motion and a second to table this for 30 days, that would give you and staff an opportunity to meet and analyze and discuss these dilemmas that you're faced with right now.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. All right, now, with that said, and hopefully we, among ourselves, understand each other, procedurally, Mr. Skinner, the process would be to reopen this public hearing, which would be a very short process. Reopen it, and then,
The motion should be to reopen the public hearing, providing we don't have any comments, and then table it until, so it's still open until the next meeting.
okay, but I need a motion and a second from
Yes.
this board to reopen this public hearing, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, I think you've heard that. Do I hear such a motion?
Make a motion to reopen the public hearing.
Motion to reopen the public hearing from Board Member Venerable, and do I hear a second?
Second.
From Board Member Jackson. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed say no. With that said, we are now going to reopen this public hearing, and it's public hearing BZA 24-2021 2737 North Nansemond Drive, Dawn and Brian Moss. All right, now with that, and again, I'm going to turn to Mr. Skinner. Do we need to go any further in terms, we've got the staff's information. Do we need to go any further other than just,
A motion to table.
but now, don't I need to close the public hearing before we get to the
No,
motion?
we want to keep the public hearing open until, because if we close it, then that means we're closing the public hearing.
Gotcha.
We want to
Gotcha.
keep it open so
Gotcha.
that they don't have to re-advertise and all of that.
Gotcha. I understand. Are you with me? I'm a little slow, but I'm getting, this is not routine.
So I would
procedure.
make a motion to table this consideration
For 30 days. Or
for
till
30
our next meeting is in 30 days.
for 30 days so that planning staff and zoning can discuss some alternative locations or alternative layouts for the fencing to come back and be heard.
All right, Board Member Venerable has made a motion that this application be tabled for 30 days to allow the applicants and staff to discuss alternatives as opposed to what's presented today. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second from Board Member Eslick. Discussion of the motion. Mr. Skinner, call for the vote, please.
Peter C. Jackson,
Yes.
Daniel Froman,
Yes.
Richard Eslick,
Yes.
Melissa Venable,
Yes.
Howard C. Benton.
Yes.
The motion has been tabled until our next scheduled meeting.
All right, thank you, Mr. Skinner. And Mr. and Ms. Moss, I think hopefully you can see the challenge with us as board members as we are faced with the regulations of the city. And I trust that you can see that there is a desire on the part of this board and hopefully with staff to give you the best option going forward. All right, now, our next public hearing this afternoon is BZA 25-2021, 3169 Godwin Boulevard, Redstone Investments. Mr. Skinner, if you will present the option, please, caption, please.
Before the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BZA 25-2021. The applicant, Redstone Investment, is requesting a variance to reduce the required setbacks located within the Special Corridor Overlay District from 30 feet to 15 feet along Kings Fork Road, and to reduce the required setback from 20 feet to 15 feet along Kingston Boulevard for the construction of a mixed-use community. The applicant is seeking relief from the previous coverage requirement. The property is identified as tax map 25*30. The parcel is identified as 2528-13000. The address is 3169 Godwin Boulevard, Suffolk, Virginia, Chuckatuck Voting Borough. Zoning classification, Commerce Park and General Commercial, CP and B2. When you act upon this request, we'll be acting on a request to reduce the required setback located on the Special Corridor Overlay District from 30 feet to 15 feet along Kings Fork Road, and to reduce the required setback from 20 feet to 15 feet along Kingston Boulevard for the construction of a mixed-use community. Should the board decide in favor of approving this request, the 8 findings as listed in your package must be articulated as part of the motion. We will now have staff analysis and recommendation by Jennifer Cobb, Zoning Administration and Enforcement Manager.
Good afternoon. As previously stated, the applicant, Redstone Investments, is requesting a variance from the Unified Development Ordinance, Article 4, Section 31412C1A, Special Corridor Overlay District setbacks, to reduce the required setback from 30 feet to 15 feet along Kings Fork Road, and to reduce the required setback from 20 feet to 15 feet along Kensington Boulevard for construction of a mixed-use development. They are also requesting relief from the density requirement. The property is identified as tax map and parcel 25*30, located at 3169 Godwin Boulevard, Suffolk, Virginia, Chuckatuck Voting Borough, zoning classification B2, CP, and PD. So we have general, commercial, Commerce Park, and planned development. This variance request was advertised in the Suffolk News Herald, and a notice was mailed to adjacent property owners in accordance with Section 15.2.2204 of the Code of Virginia, and a sign was posted on the property. The site, also known as Planter Station, is a mixed-use community with residential and commercial areas. The site has split zonings as comprised of Commerce Park, planned development, and general commercial zoning districts. The proposed development is a large grocery store with various adjacent retail uses. The parcel is also located within the Special Corridor Overlay District, which has a more stringent setback requirement. The site requires a right-of-way dedication of 70 feet to configure turn lanes required for the flow of traffic to and from the site. This dedication makes it impossible to meet the required SCOD setbacks along Kings Fork Road and Kensington Road. The applicant stated they could meet the required setbacks if they did not have to dedicate such a large amount of right-of-way to configure these turn lanes. The proposed commercial area of the site is approximately 10 acres. The applicant wishes to exceed the allowable impervious area of commercial development by 12% for a total of 82%. However, the residential component of this development will be approximately half of the permitted impervious coverage. Due to the uniqueness of this development with the split zonings, the required right-of-way dedication, and the overall impervious coverage of the entire site not exceeding 70%, staff recommends approval of this request. And I'm available for any questions the board may have.
Commissioner
Thank you, Ms. Cobb.
I'm sorry, I'll have to recuse myself from this application as our firm is working on the rezoning for the same case.
All right, thank you, Ms. Venerable. All right. At this point, we will now open the public hearing. Who would like to speak on behalf of this application?
Good afternoon, board members, chairman. My name is Jeff Huntelman with Land Planning Solutions. We represent the developer for this project. Thank you for your time today. As indicated in the opening statements, this is a unique case in that the zoning of this project has changed over the years, and it's kind of currently an old legacy zoning, and it's being developed as a mixed-use development. And the current mixed-use zoning would allow us to allocate the imperviousness over different parcels, but because of the way it was set up, this parcel is going to exceed the imperviousness, but because it was developed as a master development, we have the ponds on other parcels and other open space located in different areas. So as a whole, we are well below the impervious allowed. So that's the main reason there. And as far as the SCOD setbacks go, we are asking for relief from that because of the amount of right-of-way dedication we do have to do. There's extensive turn lanes that are being put in, and then the Kensington connection from Kings Fork to Godwin is a 70-foot right-of-way, which is, wider than normal right-of-ways that we are building to allow that connection and provide better traffic circulation. And so with those two setback requirements, we are having the difficulty of meeting the SCOD setbacks. I hope this answers any questions you might have. We look forward to this moving forward to City Council for rezoning here shortly, and hope this will be a great project in addition to the city. If you have any questions, I'll be standing by.
Thank you for that. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on behalf of this application? If not, is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition? If not, would you like to make any additional comments on behalf of your application? If not, we will now close the public hearing. I turn to members of the board for questions, comments, or a motion.
I'd like to make a motion for approval.
Motion for approval from Board Member Eslick. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second from Board Member Jackson. Motion and second for approval. Discussion of the motion. Mr. Skinner, call for the vote, please.
Peter C. Jackson,
Yes.
Daniel Froman,
Yes.
Richard Eslick,
Yes.
Howard Benton.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Congratulations. No further action is required. I'm not aware of any new business this afternoon. Is there any information from board members that need to be heard at this time? If not, thank you for your attendance and participation this afternoon. We are now adjourned.